Welcome to the FML podcast, the podcast on a mission to uncover actionable insights, explore the latest trends, and to catalyze your fintech's growth. Join Growth Gorilla's founder and managing director, Sachdev, and some of fintech's hardest-hitting marketers and leaders.
Welcome everyone to today's episode of the FML podcast. We're joined by Anna Stone, Executive Director and Co-founder at GoodDollar. Anna, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me today, Shamir. It's a pleasure to be here with the FML podcast community.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey so far and how you end up co-founding GoodDollar.
I like to describe myself as a recovering idealist, if you will, who has always been really passionate about how do we improve financial equality and really as part of that by way of increasing financial education and really making capital markets and understanding money and technology more personal and relevant to real people. I actually started this journey from the nonprofit perspective. So as a young person, worked in traditional nonprofits on economic development that were very much focused off of how can we bring basic financial services to the 1.7 billion unbanked people that constitute our world across the globe. Actually got into working through technology through learning about fintech, right? So through understanding the potential that these mobile phones could play in addressing that big challenge and that big chasm for the unbanked, that's actually what spurred my interest in fintech and technology large. Worked for a number of years in a traditional startup context, if you will. I was hired to kick off and initiate the marketing and business development team for big data startups. I did that for a number of years. Around 2017, I had a moment where I was reevaluating my career and what I was going to do next. And, really thinking, okay, am I going to be a SaaS CMO for the rest of my life? And that was when I started to discover blockchain. And really specifically was blown away by the concept of, public networks for public goods that could provide a new financial infrastructure that would basically break down all of these barriers that exist in our existing financial services system and actually potentially represent a 0-to-1 paradigm shift around how we think about technology, how we think about money, how we think about the rails of money, and who gets to access those things, right? Because again, the cell phone, the mobile phone, the smartphone provides, new possibilities, if you will. That motivation is what brought me into crypto. And so I was very fortunate to work on some of the early protocols that were operating on Ethereum. I worked for a great team called the Bancor protocol. We launched the first decentralized exchange on Ethereum. We launched a lot of frontier tech in terms of non-custodial wallets and non-custodial bridging technologies. And it was a really amazing school. My journey to blockchain was driven by the motivation and the passion to really work on financial inclusion. And so the GoodDollar is actually the brainchild and the genius idea behind the founder and CEO of eToro. His name is Yoni Assia. Yoni had eToro is a large capital markets broker dealer. We operate in over 60 countries, stocks, equities, and crypto, and all very much with an education and access focus, if you will. So how do we make capital markets accessible for more people? Yoni really wanted to extend out that idea in terms of a crypto concept and how we could actually build out, let's say, a system and products that would enable anyone to get into blockchain, that would enable anyone to get crypto assets, would be able to do so in an inherently decentralized model and with a real focus on getting that money and capabilities to people who are underserved by the existing financial system. And so that is the origin story behind GoodDollar, is actually an eToro first or initiated initiative, and Yoni finding myself and a few other excellent builders, my partners, and building out the protocol and actually doing the research to create the model that is the crypto UBI product and crypto asset that is GoodDollar today.
There was a lot of information there, and I kind of break that down into smaller chunks. The first place to start, how does GoodDollar work? How could it help those 1.7 billion unbanked that you spoke about in practical terms?
When we think of blockchain, there's two really interesting elements to it, or crypto, that both are important and both matter, but often get conflated and get confused, right? The first is actually the blockchain technology and the infrastructure and the fact that through blockchain, anyone in the world can actually open a non-custodial wallet. Then there's the element of crypto assets, right? So cryptocurrencies or crypto tokens, whether we're talking about stable coins, right? Crypto tokens that focus like stable coins, or those that are more representative of network health, like Ethereum or other big tokens that we've heard of. Both of these are, let's say, key parts of what is blockchain, the technology, and then the assets that power it, right? And GoodDollar is actually focused on addressing both. The first part that we focus on is actually how do we make it easy and possible for anyone with a smartphone to get into a non-custodial on-chain blockchain wallet, which is their own wallet within which they can begin to receive cryptocurrency and interact with the blockchain financial infrastructure, right? The second part of that is that once you get your wallet, you need to have money to use. If you want to actually use any of the decentralized financial services, you need to have actual crypto in it in order to experiment with that. In addition to that, we know that there is, especially when we talk about the unbanked and people who live on less than $5, $10 a day, we know, and it's not just me who's saying this, it's actually all economists say this, that there's a tremendous amount of trillions of dollars of untapped potential within those people in terms of their inability to exercise their capability because of a lack of opportunity, a lack of jobs, a lack of functioning currency in some cases, a lack of ability to transact and interact with even their peers. If you're talking about people who live in countries such as Zimbabwe, where moving money is so expensive, right? So the places where capital is the most needed are also the places where it's the most expensive, right? And we know that from an economic perspective, these are many of the places that have the most untapped potential. And so GoodDollar is actually designed to work across all these different levels, if you will. So the first and foremost is, how do you get someone into a non-custodial wallet in a simple and easy way? And so for that, we've actually built a really simple onboarding process that through using let's say a Facebook account, someone can really easily in 3 steps open a non-custodial wallet. You don't have to deal with private public keys. You don't have to deal with any of those real challenges of the user experience that existed, especially several years back. The second part of that is how do you enable people to learn about crypto and learn how to use DeFi by doing? And for that, you need to get free. Our approach to that is actually to give money people for free, right? To give crypto assets for free. So we distribute a daily GoodDollar UBI, a universal basic income, which is a daily distribution that goes to all active members of the system. So if you have a GoodDollar wallet, you are enabled to claim your free dose of daily crypto UBI in GoodDollars. And then we get to the third part, which is what's the actual impact on people, which we'll go more into in other questions. But the long and the short of it is that GoodDollar is actually meant to help be a tool and a currency that helps to unlock a lot of that dormant potential in people who have a lot more to give but might not have enough money to give, right? What we've seen happen is that over time, as people collect GoodDollars, as people actually, become familiar with the tool, as people become interested in decentralized economies, there are individuals all over the world who begin to, let's say, do really cool stuff with GoodDollars and help other people do really cool stuff with GoodDollars. And a lot of that focuses off of how do we take this crypto asset, instead of it just being some currency that I see in my wallet, creating the path to where this is actual real money that I can use to do real things. And whether those real things are, buying airtime or mobile money, which is a very popular use case, or whether it's donating or helping to raise funds for a good cause or a good charity. We have amazing examples of, hundreds of thousands of people around the world who are doing good things with their good dollars. And that's really the point of UBI, is to unlock human and dormant economic potential. And it's been really cool to see that actually happen over the past few years since we started the project.
So how many people are on the network now at the moment?
GoodDollar is actually, we've onboarded over 500,000 people from over 181 countries to the GoodDollar system. So these are all members of the community, members of the network. We launched around 3 years ago. Today, we have around 100,000 monthly active users. So these are people who are logging in and they're claiming good dollars every single day. And we're just so excited to see the community begin to grow and really take off in terms of empowering people who are building for their own local communities ways to use good dollar, quote unquote, in the field, if you will. It's actually one of the top used blockchain protocols by number of users in the world. So it's really exciting to see that. I think also validating in that there are a lot of people in the world who need access to new assets, who need access to new tools. And blockchain and Web3 are actually a really fertile ground upon which people can begin to access a larger digital economy and build their own lives.
It's no secret that crypto has had huge amounts of benefits in territories and countries where, like you said, it's very, very difficult to move money or inflation's rampant. I kind of want to dig into a little bit more about Good Dollar, but the question that kind of keeps just flagging up in my mind, just probably because of my marketing background, how did you launch Good Dollar and how have you managed to scale to 500,000 individuals? I suspect there's a lot of referral growth in there because naturally by the type of product that it is. How did you get it into, the first handful of people's hands, especially given the fact that it is actually still somewhat of a complex idea?
Also, crypto is a difficult space to market in, too. I think that's another element here, is that like crypto and Web3, despite all of the potential, there's also quite a bad brand associated with it. And crypto has is known for bringing a lot of bad actors and promoting a lot of scams. And so I think that was another part of our strategy, is like considering the industry and how we also wanted to define our project as different than that, even though we are giving out free money, which, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not, right? So we were very, very mindful of the greater context, which is that crypto was also an area that was known for, let's say, sort of scammy low-level marketing, and we didn't want to attract as much as possible those types of people, if you will, or that type of activity. So I'd say first and foremost, we started with the purpose and our mission, right? And so the mission and the vision of Good Dollar has always been focused off of like actually showing the power of blockchain networks to do good in the world. We're not claiming that crypto is here to make you rich. We are claiming that crypto is actually here to make people more free and empower them in a larger sense. And so for us, it was very, very important that before we launched the token, that from a branding perspective, we really built a brand that was focused off of the values of the project, which was doing good for the world. That's evidenced in our earliest materials, right? The naming of the project, the currency, our original white paper that was very much discussed the power of impact investing and the potential to apply some of those principles to the crypto world, and how the point of the Good Dollar was actually to, a large scale global monetary experiment that was designed to create good for the world. I think first and foremost, brand is really, really important. In Web3, you're basically trying to connect with the hopes and dreams of people, no matter what your product and service is, right? You want people to identify themselves in your mission, in your community, and want to be a part of it, right? So for us, it was really, really important that, especially in contrast to the rest of crypto, which was so much about and kind of rugged individualism in a way, our project really wanted to be about a collective effort to show the power of this transformational technology and all be a part of that movement. The second part of it is actually like the go-to-market and the marketing. And that was I'd say, first of all, free money I've marketed a range of different products, but bringing to market free money has its benefits. It also has its challenges, right? So free money in and of itself should be like a compelling proposition for many, many people. There are many people out there who are looking for more access to capital. I think our numbers prove that. I think for us, it was a constant, balance between how do you measure that brand integrity with the product of what it is, which is basically free money, and how are you constantly navigating that in terms of who you're attracting to the community. From a practical standpoint, we do have a strong invite or referral mechanism that has been really key in growing the network. So if friend bring a friend, you get GoodDollar bonuses. That has helped, keep, let's say, a steady growth for the community. And we always are acquiring thousands and thousands of new users as a result of that feature. But I will say that the most impactful deployments of GoodDollar are those where we've managed to successfully nurture and set up local GoodDollar communities. And, one of the things that crypto doesn't do that well as a whole is the connection between the offline and the online. One of the areas where at GoodDollar we've been the most successful is actually helping to facilitate and set up local community leaders who are interested in blockchain, who are believers in the mission, who come to us because of that, and actually empowering those individuals to set up their own local GoodDollar chapters and their own communities where they're constantly educating the people around them about blockchain, about crypto, getting people into GoodDollar wallets, showing them how they can use it, ideating with them. And we have communities like that all over the world, right? Some of our strongest are in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Cameroon, in South Africa, throughout Latin America and Brazil. We have an incredible community that's led by an incredible social entrepreneur. We have a great community in the Philippines and Indonesia, growing numbers. So I think, from a marketing strategy perspective, there are a bunch of different tools that we deployed to, let's say, reach those big numbers. But the areas where we see growth concentrated and communities really getting the most out of GoodDollar, if you will, and being able to help themselves the most with GoodDollar is through actually this global to local program that's facilitated through blockchain, which is so freaking cool because that's the whole point.
You've got these community leaders. Are these the individuals who are educating your end users on the GoodDollar product, what blockchain is, and how the UBI protocol works?
This, I think, refers to a larger mindset shift around how we think of marketing in Web 2 and how we think of actually, I don't even want to say our customers in Web 3 because I'm so far away from thinking of them that, right? Because in Web 2, you really have sellers and you have buyers. That's how we are taught as growth people to think about. And you're taught a range of tactics as the seller to connect to the buyer and facilitate the buyer in a buying flow. Web3 and thinking about currencies and thinking about creating decentralized communities is quite different than that, because you're actually trying to do is, one, attract people who are like-minded and believe in what you believe, and then motivate them in many ways, not as customers, but as actual, when community members are owners of GoodDollar as well, right? And that is actually, I think, a really fundamental shift between Web 2 and Web 3 when we think about growth that takes some time to really digest, right? Is that you're not just trying to get sign up numbers, you're not just trying to get those vanity numbers. What you're actually trying to do is bring on believers who actually see themselves in the belief of, let's say, your goal. In this case, it's GoodDollar. It's creating free money as a public good, and actually understand how they can benefit from that and contribute to that. And so that there's a real sense of ownership, right? It's that we're breaking down this traditional, I want to say, paradigm between buyer and seller. And in fact, all members of a particular community, through sharing the same belief and through having the same asset, you're all meant to have the same sense of alignment and incentive to actually succeed. And that's critical to everything we do, right? Is that we see our quote unquote, the local chapters, that is GoodDollar, right? The people on the ground who are doing the work, who are actually, they're educating their own communities, they're building their own professional profiles, they're building their own future in many ways. And they're not our customers, right? Like they are our team, they are our partners, they are owners in the network. And our success depends on them, right? And how well we support them in the field. And so I think that, and actually tell and educate people around, this is what GoodDollar is. This is where you can use it. This is how you yourself can set up your own community to use GoodDollar. This is how you can open an airtime shop. This is how you can use GoodDollar in your local store. This is how you can use GoodDollar, in your local restaurant. This is how you can use it to raise money for charity. So we see ourselves ourselves and the core team, we're trying to really provide the education so that our members are able to take this thing and run with it. But we certainly don't think about it as and build themselves off of it and see themselves as owners there. It's totally different than how you would think of selling products and services in a traditional, let's say, Web 2 or consumer concept, in my experience.
I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask is, the difference between sort of marketing within sort of Web 2 versus Web 3, but you kind of covered that off. And I think that must still face some obstacles in terms of, it's not as clear cut as creating a white paper, getting followers and getting them to distribute the message as such. And I suppose with, even with Web 2, we see, challenges and obstacles. There must be obstacles that Web3 marketing faces.
Oh yeah.
And did you sort of, did you have any of those while trying to scale GoodDollar?
Yes, and every day. First and foremost, there's the messaging challenge of we've had a huge messaging challenge, right? So I think I can be transparent about that. Just in terms of UBI can be considered kind of a remote concept. And then you're also, universal basic income has become known as kind of a government program. So one of the challenges we faced is that many people think of universal basic income of okay, I'm going to get $1,000 a month, or I'm going to get 800 euros a month, or I'm going to get, kind of playing around with some of the policy. Even in South Africa, the UBI state level proposals for around $100 a month, right? So across a range of geographies, UBI, because it's political, because it's a known political issue, there's a big difference between that and, let's say, the GoodDollar approach to UBI, which is actual micro distributions of micro amounts of currency in an open system, in a global system that's actually meant to facilitate interaction peer-to-peer. From a messaging perspective, we were really out there, right? Most people didn't know what crypto is, let alone UBI, let alone a crypto UBI, let alone a peer-to-peer digital currency. And I'm going through this because I think there are a lot of crypto projects and decentralized communities, or DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, that are trying to do really new frontier things. And I think the language that we use and how we position the benefits to people is still really, really difficult, in any frontier new market category. That would be one thing. On top of that, GoodDollar is completely and totally global, right? So we launched in an open system. Anywhere in the world can sign up. And so in addition to having a challenge explaining what the thing is in English, then you're also dealing with the translation challenges, right? You don't really know how people are receiving the messaging in their native language, if they're able to get it translated, if they're able to understand, etc. So that has been, I'd say, one challenge that we've definitely faced. Another challenge that we've really faced is that crypto is really loud, right? It's a very hype-driven, cycle-driven industry to be a marketer in. And so that requires you to have money, right? If you want to make noise in a crowded market, you need to have money. GoodDollar is a lot of things, but we operate as a nonprofit funded by corporate donations, right? So we're not particularly in a bull market, not even a bull market, just in general, there are many, many companies in crypto that have a lot of marketing dollars to spend. They're spending them. They are grabbing headlines. They're doing launches. They're making announcements. They're running campaigns. And that's difficult to compete with. that's just like a competitive landscape, particularly when you're operating as a nonprofit. The third thing I would say is that in general, crypto is a tough brand, particularly in the past year. It's undergone, with good reason, some really tough scrutiny in the media. And so I think it's healthy and to be expected that the predisposition of many media outlets and many journalists is actually to like look for the negative, look for the bad. And I think that's potentially made even worse by the fact that we're actually trying to do something good, right? So it makes people ultra suspicious of our intentions, potentially, and just a little less welcome to really learning and to like hearing what it's about, because people are jaded. And I think a lot of crypto journalists are jaded with plenty of good reason, right? Again, it's like, it's not unjustified. But as a communicator and as a storyteller, that's a really, really difficult circumstances under which to operate, right? Of course, I'm biased, but I really fundamentally believe that GoodDollar is one of the most interesting, worthwhile deployments of crypto making a positive impact in the world that exists, right? I think we're one of the most interesting and impactful and numerically, successful. It's proven that we're one of the most popular projects in the world. And more important than that, we have real people who are doing real things with GoodDollar to improve their lives. In many ways, this has always been the crypto holy grail of mass adoption. But you have to be operating in an environment that allows for those stories to break through, rather than the conversation always being the most sensational hack or the most sensational fraud or the most sensational JPEG or NFT selling for the most amount of money, in order for people to really be willing to sit down and listen to those stories.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously that GoodDollar's grown by the thousands per day. What's the future for GoodDollar? What's the outlook and ultimately what's the big goal?
The big goal is to get as much money to as many people around the world who need it as possible, right? And so we see GoodDollar is any crypto UBI project is going to be a moonshot. We see ourselves as having a really powerful primitive, if you will, of what a scalable UBI infrastructure could possibly look like. And our goal is to continue to advance that hypothesis and reach as many people with as many people as possible over the next 10 to 20 years. That's the actual goal. In terms of what's next for us, GoodDollar's we actually just deployed on a new blockchain. So now GoodDollar UBI is distributed on 2 different blockchains. This is designed to increase our reach. And our focus is really around enabling the GoodDollar users or the GoodDollar members to use their GoodDollars as real money in the digital economy, right? Like this is the actual focus that we think about. And so we talked a little bit about the motive of the project being financial education and enabling people to learn by doing. And I think that this is, as decentralized finance actually touches more and more people and becomes a relevant option for more and more people, we really want to make sure that anyone in the world can actually begin to use and experiment with these tools. And GoodDollar is an on-ramp for them to begin to have the crypto tokens and the crypto assets for themselves that enable them to begin to learn and to begin to experiment. I think anyone who's really worked in crypto a long time knows that it's, you don't know what you're doing, right? And you learn by losing. And for many, many people around the world who don't just have like $100 to throw away on Bitcoin, right? That means that crypto and DeFi is never actually going to be accessible for them. And yet the people who are underserved by existing financial services, who don't have access to savings or payments or anything, these are the people who need DeFi, right? So these are the people who need DeFi. And so our focus is actually like really working squarely at that gap between the people, people who are, let's say, underserved by existing financial services systems and most need access to new financial services systems, right? And through a decentralized infrastructure. And how GoodDollar can actually be both an on-ramp, but also an asset that enables people to begin to bridge that really bridges that gap. And I will tell you that there are not that many organizations within crypto, there are not that many companies or organizations that are playing in that specific space, right? Because they're just focused on other things, and that's fine. But we are playing there. That's where we are focusing on, is how can we actually reach the people who most need access to DeFi, the tools and the assets. And we are focusing our efforts there. So that means investing in the key geographies where we have active communities. That means educating and providing more opportunities for our local community leaders that are building on GoodDollar. And overall, building out this really exciting ecosystem that enables people to use GoodDollar as real money. I'll give you 2 examples of cool things that we're working on that I think exemplify this. The first is we really are passionate about enabling people to use their GoodDollars to pay for other public goods. So that's water, agricultural investments, and solar panels. And we're currently working on a really awesome pilot that should roll out in Rwanda over the next year, where people, members in Rwanda are going to be able to use their GoodDollars to pay for solar panels, right? So these are already digital payments that they're using. What we are facilitating is actually like a payment integration that enables people to pay using their GoodDollars for the solar panels that they're already using, and they're already trying to pay back in a pay-to-own fashion. So that's like one example of a project that we're super, super excited about. We also have a range of different NGOs that are planning on running, they're segmented aid disbursement pilots through using our technology infrastructure, right? So if you think about it, in our existing philanthropic and actually aid industry, there is still no good way to get money to people individually. That doesn't exist, right? So think about what happened during the Ukrainian crisis. I think is a great example. They were able, there were a number of different crypto-enabled organizations that were able to crowdfund overnight dozens of millions of dollars that were meant as aid to go to Ukrainians, right? That was for me, a pinnacle moment in terms of showing that crypto is a superior technology to any other technology in terms of crowdfunding. However, once they got all those funds, they're stuck in the problem of distribution. How do you actually get that money to people? How do you get that money to people who are identified as Ukrainian? How do you get that to people as money who are identified as Ukrainian and crossing the border, for example? How do you and so those problems still exist, and they exist for every humanitarian crisis, is actually how do you then get the funds to the individuals that need the money, that are suffering from the crisis? And so we know that the infrastructure that we've built, which is based off of one person, one wallet, knowing and understanding where those people are from. We have some basic indicators around who they are, how we can actually use that infrastructure to facilitate payments of money into individual communities that meet certain demographic descriptors at scale. And so we're really, really excited to work with a few different nonprofits and traditional NGOs that are looking at aid and payments and how that can be facilitated through the GoodDollar protocol and facilitated through the GoodDollar infrastructure, all while having the benefit of, in the background, that's actually paying for the global UBI system for everyone. So these are some of the things we're really excited about.
That's been really, really interesting. We'll add all the details about GoodDollar into the show notes. If you want to find out more, you can visit their website. And thank you for joining us today on the FML podcast.
Thanks.
The FML podcast is brought to you by Growth Gorilla. To find out how our marketing growth experts can boost your fintech's growth, head to growthgorilla.co.uk. And make sure to search for the FML podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Growth Gorilla, thanks for listening.